The morning I finished building my 6-foot privacy fence, I finally exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for weeks. After months of saving, planning, and dealing with the city's permit office, I had finally fenced off my backyard from the street. Not a fancy fence, just clean, sturdy cedar slats lining the edge of my property. It looked good. Real good. My name's Isaiah Langford, and I've lived in the Meadowglen Estates neighborhood for 7 years. It's not fancy, but I like it. I'm a welder by trade, divorced, and more or less keep to myself. I've never caused trouble with the HOA, until now, apparently, because at exactly 2:43 p.m. that afternoon, as I was sweeping sawdust off my driveway, a beige Lexus screeched to a halt in front of my house like it was the finale at Daytona. Out stepped Sylvia Darnell, HOA board member, self-declared community aesthetic coordinator, and without a doubt, the most insufferable woman I've ever met. She strutted up my driveway like she owned it. "Isaiah," she barked, eyes bugging behind oversized sunglasses. "That fence is a violation of Meadowglen HOA Rule 21. Front-facing structures must be approved by the Architectural Review Committee." I leaned on my broom. "It's not front-facing, Sylvia. It's around the back and sides of the property. I got the permit. City approved it." "Don't need your blessing." She practically glowed with outrage. "You didn't submit an exterior modification request to the board." "Because I didn't have to. It's behind the build line. City code overrides HOA preferences." Sylvia's face twitched like she'd just swallowed a lemon whole. She whipped out her phone, dialed, and loudly told the person on the other end, "Yes, I'd like to report a code violation and a possible trespass issue. He's building an unauthorized structure." I walked back to the garage. "Good luck with that," I said over my shoulder. 15 minutes later, 2 police cruisers pulled up in front of my house. No sirens. Just the flashing lights and the satisfying sound of Sylvia turning all the way up to 10 as she greeted the officers like they were her personal security detail. "There," she shrieked, pointing like she was trying to solve a murder. "That man is violating HOA guidelines and possibly city zoning codes." The officers, one older guy and a younger woman, looked at me, then at the fence, then at the red folder I handed them with the city permit property line survey and photos from before construction. The younger cop flipped through it. "This is all in order, permits valid, no encroachment, you're good," Sylvia gasped. "But he didn't get our approval." The older officer raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, this is not a police matter. HOA disputes are civil. If you believe he violated your HOA's rules, you'll need to handle that through your association." "I am the association," she snapped. The officer gave her a look like he'd heard that kind of nonsense before. "Well then, ma'am, you can file a complaint like anyone else." They left. Sylvia didn't. She stood there, arms crossed, glaring at my fence like she was trying to burn it down with her eyeballs. I went inside, cracked a beer, and watched her through the blinds as she pulled out her phone again. I didn't need to hear it to know what she was doing, rallying the rest of the HOA board to make my life miserable, and it worked. The next morning, I got a letter taped to my front door. A violation notice from the Meadowglen HOA, signed by Sylvia herself, citing unauthorized construction, non-conforming materials, and failure to obtain ARC approval. She'd even added a handwritten note at the bottom. "Failure to remove the fence within 7 days will result in escalating fines and possible legal action." I laughed out loud. Because what Sylvia didn't know was that I'd already started documenting everything. Every interaction, every message, every step of the process. I had a plan. She wanted a war. She had no idea who she was messing with. HOA story, HOA stories, Homeowners Association stories. On the 4th day after the violation notice, I received a certified letter. Not from the HOA, this one came from a law firm downtown. The envelope was thick, the kind that made you clench your jaw before opening it. Inside was a cease and desist order drafted by a firm calling itself Baker, Langston & Rowe. It demanded removal of my non-compliant barrier within 72 hours or face a civil injunction. Attached was an invoice for administrative costs totaling $980. I read it twice just to be sure I wasn't hallucinating. The letter cited HOA bylaw sections that, according to the actual Meadowglen governing documents I'd printed months ago, didn't even exist. I triple-checked. Nothing matched. They had fabricated rule numbers and inserted fake language about architectural flow integrity and community-facing symmetry standards. I'd never seen the terms in any of the original documents I'd reviewed before building the fence. That's when things stopped being petty. I knew intimidation when I saw it. This wasn't about aesthetics, and it certainly wasn't about rules. It was about control. Sylvia and her cronies had decided I was an easy target. They didn't expect me to read the fine print. I drove straight to the county clerk's office and pulled the original HOA filing from when the neighborhood was incorporated in the late 90s. Sure enough, the governing covenants hadn't been amended since 2008. No mention of any barrier facing symmetry or whatever term they'd conjured up. I took copies, got them notarized, then drove to city zoning and pulled my signed boundary survey. That night, I started assembling a case file. I labeled a binder with tabs, permits, correspondence, photos, legal threats, governing documents. I included screenshots from the HOA's website before they had a chance to start hiding things. The next day, I went to the address listed on the cease and desist letter. Baker, Langston & Rowe was a second-floor office above a vape shop and a nail salon. The glass door had one name on it, Langston Mediation Services. No Baker, no Rowe. The receptionist looked confused when I asked about the law firm. "We don't practice law here," she said. "We offer small claims mediation." I held up the letter. "So this isn't a licensed law office?" She checked with someone in the back. A man came out, late 40s, thinning hair, khakis too tight around the waist. He introduced himself as Dean Langston, conflict resolution specialist. I handed him the letter. "You sent this?" He looked at it, blinked. "Well, yes, but only at the request of the Meadowglen HOA. We offer legal sounding services, not actual representation. It's a deterrent. So it's a bluff." He shifted on his feet. "We prefer to think of it as persuasive language. You have a license to practice law in this state." His eyes narrowed. "No, but we never claimed. You used the words injunction and civil liability. That's legal terminology. You're impersonating a law office." He crossed his arms. "I think we're done here." I left, but not before snapping a photo of the business license certificate hanging behind his desk. It said Langston Mediation LLC. I emailed it to the State Bar Association that afternoon. The next morning, I installed a floodlight-equipped motion camera on the back fence post. The very next night, just after midnight, it caught a woman in a floral robe and slippers standing next to my fence with a tape measure. She was scribbling something on a clipboard and muttering to herself. She didn't see the camera, but I saw her. Sylvia. I submitted the footage to the local precinct's property crimes division. I also sent it to the city zoning department with a formal complaint for trespassing and possible harassment by a representative of a corporate entity. 2 days later, I got a call from Detective Lomas, a soft-spoken woman with a no-nonsense tone. She asked if I could come down and provide a written statement and the footage for an open investigation. Apparently, I wasn't the only resident who'd reported strange nighttime visits from HOA members. One neighbor had found her garden gate unlatched 4 mornings in a row. Another swore her security light wires had been snipped. I gave Detective Lomas everything I had, down to the letterhead from Langston's fake law office. "What do you think this is about?" I asked. She leaned back in her chair. "Someone on your board's pushing boundaries. This isn't about zoning anymore. It's intimidation. Possibly wire fraud if false legal threats were mailed." That night, I printed out the cease and desist letter and taped it to the inside of my front window with a bright yellow post-it that said, "Nice try." I figured if Sylvia wanted to walk past and check, I'd give her something to look at. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for Friday night at the community clubhouse. Normally, about 6 people showed up. That evening, the parking lot was full. I walked in with my binder under one arm and 3 printed posters under the other, each one showing a different still from the surveillance video of Sylvia trespassing. I didn't say a word when I entered. Just pinned the posters to the corkboard by the entrance and took a seat in the back. Sylvia saw them 10 minutes into the meeting. Her voice caught mid-sentence as she squinted, then whipped around to scan the room. Her face drained of color. "Who put those up?" I raised my hand. "Those are from my security camera. They show someone measuring my fence at night without permission." "On my property." A buzz went through the room. One of the board members, a retired math teacher named Hank, leaned forward. "Sylvia, is that you in the picture?" She didn't answer. I stood up. "I've also got a cease and desist letter here that was mailed under the name of a fake law firm." I confirmed with the state bar they're investigating the sender for unauthorized practice of law. If I get another fine or threat from this board, I'll file a restraining order and a formal complaint with the state attorney general. Sylvia tried to pivot. "This isn't how we handle disputes." "Actually, you're right," I said. "Proper disputes involve real rules, not made-up ones. This board fabricated bylaws, impersonated legal counsel, and harassed residents under false pretenses. That's not a dispute, that's fraud." The room went quiet. Then Hank cleared his throat. "I move that we table any further enforcement action regarding Isaiah's fence until legal counsel clarifies the HOA's authority and real architectural guidelines." Another member seconded it immediately. Sylvia stood frozen, lips parted, trying to summon a retort. Nothing came. I walked out before the vote. I didn't need to hear it. Back at home, I opened a fresh folder in my binder. Criminal Investigation HOA Misconduct. I labeled it with the date and added a copy of my police statement, plus the printed email confirmation from the state bar. I wasn't just fighting for my fence anymore. I was cleaning house. By Monday morning, a new sign had appeared at the neighborhood clubhouse bulletin board. It was printed on glossy cardstock and taped dead center, like it was meant to be seen from space. Emergency HOA meeting board restructure vote Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. No warm greetings, no friendly font, just a terse announcement stapled over the faded flyer for last month's community barbecue. The timing wasn't subtle. Sylvia's grip was slipping, and she knew it. I spent that day reaching out to neighbors, people I'd seen at block parties, joggers I waved to from my porch, the elderly couple 2 doors down who always brought out lawn chairs during fireworks season. Most had their own stories. A woman named Cheryl said she'd been fined for painting her shutters a shade too dark. A single dad talked about an anonymous tip that led to a surprise inspection of his backyard shed. I asked if he ever saw the person who filed the complaint. "I didn't need to," he said. "She left footprints in my planting bed, size 6 wedge heel. My ex wore the same ones." I handed out printed summaries of our neighborhood's actual covenants, not the edited, fake ones the board circulated through emails. I highlighted the original amendment clause, the one requiring a 2/3 majority of homeowners to change any architectural guideline. Most looked at the paper like it was the first time they'd seen the HOA rules in daylight. By the time Wednesday evening rolled around, the clubhouse was standing room only. Folding chairs had been dragged in from the storage closet, and still people leaned on walls or stood near the back. The mood was different this time, not tense, but focused. No small talk. No baked goods on the refreshment table. Just residents ready. Sylvia wasn't late. She walked in exactly on time, flanked by 2 board members who looked less like allies and more like hostages. Her outfit was stiff, a blazer that hadn't moved with her body in years, and she carried a clipboard like a weapon. "Let's come to order," she said, scanning the room. As announced, tonight's meeting is about clarifying board authority, especially in light of recent misunderstandings. I raised my hand. She ignored it. The board will open with remarks before we take questions. I didn't lower my hand. I waited. So did 30 other people. She hesitated, then nodded like it was her idea. Isaiah, she said, voice flat. I move to suspend current board authority pending a community vote, I said. Per Clause 8 of the bylaws, which allows for immediate restructure if 3/5 of residents are present and approve a motion. Sylvia's pen stalled mid-note. That clause is outdated. It was superseded by a 2015 amendment. A woman near the front stood. I checked the recorder's office this morning. There's no such filing. Your 2015 amendment doesn't exist. Sylvia's jaw tensed. We have internal documentation. A man near the door cut in. Internal doesn't mean legal. Another voice. You can't enforce rules that aren't public record. I stepped forward. This board's been fabricating language, impersonating legal authorities, and coordinating unauthorized surveillance. I've filed formal complaints with the state bar and the district attorney's office. That's not governance. That's misconduct. Sylvia tried to retake control. This is not the proper venue for accusations. If you believe a crime has occurred, I do, I said. And so does Detective Lomas. The room stirred. I hadn't told anyone the latest development yet. Over the weekend, the County Property Crimes Unit had pulled HOA board email records. An IT tech at the district office told me, off the record, that several emails between Sylvia and Langston Mediation referenced strategic falsification of enforcement language and soft intimidation methods designed to discourage resistance. It got worse. One email forwarded from Sylvia to the board treasurer advised withholding neighborhood maintenance services from non-compliant households. That included delayed landscaping, trash pickup coordination, and street lamp repairs. That crossed a legal line. By Tuesday morning, the DA's office had opened a case for targeted service denial, a civil rights violation under state charter law. Property owners were being punished for non-alignment with board preferences. It was coercion by neglect. I have copies of those emails, I said aloud. And I've sent them to every homeowner in this room. Phones buzzed. A few people pulled theirs out and opened their inboxes. I'd blind copied the neighborhood list that morning. The subject line read, "The truth about your HOA." Sylvia's face went rigid. Her voice dropped an octave. You've accessed restricted communication. That's a breach of privacy. I subpoenaed nothing, I said. The records were acquired by law enforcement. They're part of an active investigation. The room fell into a hush so complete I could hear someone's watch ticking. Then a man in a flannel shirt near the snacks table said, "I vote we remove the current board and hold new elections." A woman by the window called, seconded. Sylvia stepped forward, shoulders squared as if she could will the moment to collapse. "You don't understand what's at stake," she said. "This neighborhood requires oversight, structure. Without it, we'll lose cohesion. Property values will suffer. You'll regret this." A teenager in the back scoffed. "We already regret you." Chuckles rippled through the room. Votes were taken by hand raise. We passed the motion in under 5 minutes. Sylvia stood silent as it happened, her clipboard drooping at her side. She didn't object, didn't interrupt. Maybe she finally understood just how far she'd pushed. After the vote, I walked up to the front and placed a sealed envelope on the folding table. "That's for you," I said. She didn't touch it. "It's a formal notice of intent to pursue civil damages for harassment, false legal threats, and defamation. I've retained counsel. You'll be contacted by my attorney." Her mouth opened, but no words came. I turned and left the clubhouse. Outside, the air felt different, lighter. As I walked back to my truck, I passed 3 neighbors sweeping their sidewalks. One gave me a thumbs up. Another just nodded like we'd shared something important, unspoken. Back at home, I took the binder off my kitchen table and slid it into a drawer. The fence still stood unpainted, simple, and solid. It wasn't just lumber and nails anymore. It was a line. One I had drawn. And one no one would cross again. The day after the emergency vote that removed the entire HOA board, including Sylvia, I was back in my backyard, rehanging the solar lanterns that had blown down in the storm the night before. The air felt easier, like the neighborhood had exhaled something toxic. You could hear lawnmowers again, kids laughing, wind chimes finally ringing without someone filing a noise complaint. But things weren't settled. Not yet. What Sylvia and her board had done went far beyond overreach. The harassment, the fabricated rulebook, the fake legal threats, that was one thing. But what I found next knocked the floor out from under everything. It started when I got a call from Hank, the retired math teacher who had served on the board before Sylvia staged her little coup 3 years ago. He'd stayed quiet most of the time, but now he was ready to talk. "I found something," he said. "It's about the HOA's financials. You need to see it." I met him at his house that afternoon. He led me to his office where he had binders stacked like a librarian preparing for war. He pulled out a folder marked 2021-2023 budget reports and laid it flat on the desk. "Notice anything off?" he asked. I flipped through the line items. Landscaping services, pool maintenance, insurance premiums. All standard stuff until I saw the vendor names. One in particular, Darnell Property Solutions. It showed up in recurring payments, monthly ones listed as grounds upkeep and administrative maintenance. I looked up. She was paying herself, he nodded, or someone in her family. That LLC was registered last year. I found the articles of incorporation online. The registered agent is her niece. He handed me a printout from the Secretary of State's business registry, clear as daylight. Registered agent, Monique Darnell, mailing address, Sylvia's. Over $30,000 in payments, Hank said. And that's just what I could find here. No audits were done. She shut them down for cost efficiency last year. "It's embezzlement," I said, "and possibly tax fraud," he added. "I've already contacted an accountant I trust. He said it looks like they funneled HOA dues through shell vendors." That's criminal. There was no question what had to happen next. I gathered every piece of evidence we had: vendor invoices, bank statements, the fraudulent cease and desist letter, copies of the real bylaws, and the surveillance footage. I made 3 sets. One went to the district attorney's office, one to the state's Department of Housing Oversight, and one directly to the local IRS field office. I also filed a report with the county's Financial Crimes Division. 3 days later, Detective Lomas contacted me again. Her tone was different this time, measured, but carrying an edge of urgency. "We've expanded the investigation," she said. "There are now 3 other residents who have come forward with documents, including a whistleblower from the landscaping company who said they were paid to invoice but not perform." "You mean fake work orders?" I asked. "Exactly," she said. "They were instructed to submit monthly bills for lawn treatments nobody received. In exchange, they were allowed to dump yard waste on HOA land without disposal fees." "Who authorized it?" "The checks were signed by Sylvia Darnell. We have copies." That same week, a plain white van with government plates parked outside the old HOA office. 2 agents in dark shirts carried out boxes, file folders, hard drives, even the old desktop computer Sylvia had used to send all those threatening emails. I watched from across the street with another neighbor, Miguel, who ran a small construction business. He let out a low whistle. "Man. When this hits court, she's cooked." "She's going to fight it," I said. "She's already lost." The fallout came fast. First, Sylvia was arrested. The sheriff's office issued a statement confirming she was being charged with wire fraud, criminal misappropriation of funds, and impersonating legal authority. Her bail was set high, well into 5 figures. Her mugshot made local news, and for once, she wasn't wearing designer sunglasses or a forced grin. Just a blank stare and a number pinned to her orange jumpsuit. Then came the civil suits. 5 residents, including me, filed together joint plaintiffs. Our attorney, a sharp former prosecutor named Dana Reeves, laid out the damages in meticulous detail. Mental distress, reputational harm, and financial losses from fabricated fines and withheld services. But the twist came during discovery. Dana called me into her office one afternoon with a thick manila envelope already open on her desk. Inside were internal emails obtained through subpoena ones Sylvia had never expected anyone to see. "Take a look at this," Dana said, sliding over a printed thread. It was correspondence between Sylvia and a man listed as C. Rowe, the supposed partner from that fake law firm. Except we now knew he was an unlicensed notary-turned-document prepper who'd worked with Sylvia under the table. In one email, Sylvia wrote, "If we push fines hard enough, we can leverage foreclosures. Start with Langford, he's isolated." "She was trying to take my house," I said quietly. Dana nodded. "Not just yours, there are 4 other names in here." She wanted to trigger lien defaults, buy the properties through a holding company and flip them. She was trying to run a takeover scheme. Exactly. The court date came 6 weeks later. The hearing room was packed: neighbors, reporters, even a few folks from other neighborhoods who'd heard the story. Sylvia's attorney tried to argue that she was operating within perceived authority and that all actions taken were in pursuit of community welfare. Dana stood and methodically dismantled that nonsense. "She impersonated legal professionals," Dana said, voice calm but direct. "She manufactured enforcement letters. She funneled over $30,000 to entities under her control and attempted to orchestrate property takeovers under the guise of HOA enforcement. That's not community stewardship. That's premeditated fraud." The judge didn't even take a recess. He ruled in our favor on every count. Sylvia was ordered to pay restitution, barred from holding any HOA or corporate office for 10 years, and referred for state-level prosecution on additional charges tied to the attempted property seizures. As for the fake law office, Langston was fined, stripped of his notary license, and permanently banned from providing any document services in the state. Back in Meadowglen, we held a neighborhood celebration, not a block party, but a simple gathering in the park. People brought lawn chairs, someone grilled hot dogs, and kids ran around without anyone measuring fence heights or counting how many garden gnomes were on display. A new board was elected, transparent, community-oriented, and fully accountable. Hank agreed to serve as interim treasurer until a permanent replacement could be found. The first motion they passed, repealing the entire list of fines issued over the past 2 years and refunding any payments made under Sylvia's tenure. Late that evening, I sat on my back porch with Miguel, watching the fireflies blink across the yard. "You ever think it'd go this far?" he asked. "No," I said. "I just wanted to build a fence," he laughed. "Ended up tearing a whole system down." I looked out at the cedar slat I'd put up with my own hands. They stood tall and unbothered, casting long shadows in the dusk. Not just a fence anymore, a boundary, a statement. "Funny how that works," I said. "You build something to keep people out. Turns out it lets the right ones in." And for the first time in a long time, the neighborhood finally felt like home.